For some analysis on this, let's bring in Alexander Titov. He's a Russia affairs analyst and a lecturer at Queen's University, Belfast. Thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. So in the past 24 hours, Putin has written off $23 billion debts to African countries. He has pledged free grains to at least 6 African nations. What exactly is Putin trying to achieve here?
Well, I think he is trying to counterbalance the Western narratives that Russia's quitting the grain deal with Ukraine is endangering the food security for Africa. And he's trying to prove that that he's actually doing everything he can to increase that support for Africa in terms of also food security, but most importantly tries to keep them, if not on Russia's side, at least neutral side, more globally in his competition and rivalry with the West. And just the fact that they came there and listened to him and does everything else shows that he's really reasonably successful in that. That he can still attract a lot of African leaders to St. Petersburg, to Russia, even in the middle of the war.
Right, and the fact that Putin has promised free grain to at least 6 African nations, does it perhaps indicate that President Putin is not interested in renewing or perhaps adding Russia to the Black Sea grain deal anymore?
Well, I think the devil is in the details, and it's a nice symbolic gesture. How much grain actually will be sent for free and so forth is another thing. But Russia is obviously produces more grain than Ukraine, and Ukraine send most of its grain to China and to European Union. But the most important thing, of course, is that taking Ukrainian grain out increases prices overall. That's what is the most important bit for the African nations, that their food security is dependent on multiple supplies, and if not directly to them, but to the world more generally. And that's Russia's has been undermining that with quitting of the deal. But equally, the deal itself, Russia wants to have a better deal from European Union, particularly lifting of the secondary sanctions, particularly bounce its financial sector, its main agricultural bank, its shipping, cargo, logistics, and so forth. So that's the key. I think Russia will rejoin the deal if its conditions are met, which Europeans don't want to do so far. So we reduced all these symbolic gestures like free grain or blaming Russia for food security and so forth. And the African leaders kind of caught in between here.
All right, Alexander Titov, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World.